Hey friends, Sarah here. This may become my new favorite place to come as the weather gets a little cooler. Wanted to ask you a quick question. I wonder if you ever thought about this. You know, there's a lot of ugliness in the world and even our lives, unfortunately. And I wondered if you ever considered what just a few questions, or a couple in this case, how a few questions maybe could prevent some of those things, maybe even war, down to war. In church today, we were encouraged and challenged in a big way. I was challenged in a big way to confront anger, to confront someone who maybe has caused a discomfort in you, pain. Remember, we choose to be offended, but we also have to control how we feel, right? Being angry is okay, but how we respond to anger isn't always. And so what our pastor encouraged us to do is, if we started small, right? When it first got under your skin, when it first hurt just a little bit, when it first felt uncomfortable, if you'd ask these two questions, and you started when it was small, when you first felt it, again, think of all the things that could have been prevented had we exercised this. Just two very simple questions that maybe you want to start asking too. Number one, are you okay? Okay? He does this with his staff, okay? Are you okay? If it feels like the temperature of the room or the temperature of the content that was discussed maybe wasn't okay, it's okay to reach out. Because you know what you're telling that person? You're telling them that they're important enough to you to ask. They're important enough to you to ask if everything's okay, if you're okay. Are we okay? You can text it too if it's a little safer for you, but I encourage you to call or even knock on their door to ask that question. Be honest though. Don't play with fluff. All fluff does is become hard. All it does is become hard. And it's true, right? If you leave out a can of fluff, it does actually become hard and really sticky and really hard to clean up. So I just thought of that. Maybe that's why we call it fluff, because it's not genuine. It's not real, just like fluff isn't. And what is soft at first, what is malleable at first and can be maybe even fixed, becomes hard and sticky if you leave it out there, okay? So answer honestly to the question, are we okay? When someone asks you, because they care enough to ask in the first place. And the second question he asked, that he says and shares with his staff, they all embody this. This is something they all embody, because they want to attack whatever may not feel just right when it's small, okay? And this supports that too. This one's a little harder, because this one we have to be honest with ourselves. I mean, they both do to an extent, but this one I would be so bold as to say would probably challenge you as much as it challenged me, okay? Are you willing to face that 10%? And what I mean by that, the final 10% was the second point. That's how he specifically called it, the final 10%, because we're okay, we're comfortable with giving 90% of the truth, even to our spouse, even to our parents, maybe especially to our parents. Maybe our parents, not you guys, mom and dad, not you. I'm just talking about the general you, okay? Parents probably know 40%. Just kidding. Anyway, the final 10%, this is hard, right? If you're going to have relationship with anyone, right relationship with anyone, if you're going to dissolve anything that's just small enough to fix right now before it gets huge, you want to ask, are we okay? But you also want to say, are you ready to give me that final 10%? Because until it's all out there, until 100% of it's out there, you can't have genuine anything. Because something's hidden, something's not revealed, something's not faced, like you're not facing it, okay? So that was something huge, because in order to prevent any malice, any confrontation in a unhealthy manner, you need to ask, are you okay? Are we okay? And answer honestly. And then, of course, do you trust me with your final 10%? Do you trust me with your final 10%? Guys, I know this is earned. Trust is very, very important. It's very, very important. And I know that you have to earn it. But I also know that we can only control ourselves. And I say this all the time. I say it all the time. You're probably sick of me saying it. But that's the truth. We can't control the other person. The other person doesn't have a track record of coming to you when it first offends them. I know I probably carry that track record. I'm not always consistently confronting something that's uncomfortable. I'm not always consistent in confronting the final 10%. In fact, I don't know that I ever have, truly, because I'd have to accept the final 10% first. I'd have to know what that final 10% is. And so ask these very hard questions early enough where these very hard questions don't have to seem so very hard, so very scary. Because you know what these two questions are? These two questions are a remedy. It is a preventative measure that we take to support and uplift and share with our comrades, right? If they're important enough to you, ask those questions, because if it's just tiny, you can pat that thing out with your bare hands, right? You don't need a fire extinguisher, you don't need a hose, you just pat it out with your hands. You take care of it right there. It doesn't have to become this wildfire that you can't even remember where it started. Like, you can't even remember how did this happen? Where did this come from? Right? Start when it's small. And even if it's silly to you, even if it seems inconsequential and even kind of pathetic, even kind of silly, like, it's not really a big deal. Well, it's not really a big deal. It can turn into a monstrous big deal. So just ask. Are we okay? We good? You and me? Be honest. You trust me with that last 10%? Do you have another couple percent that you want to share? Let's get it all out there, because if you trust me with that, we can be free. We can love each other unconditionally. We can respect each other unconditionally. We can accept each other unconditionally, like I said a couple days ago. I'm telling you, everything's full circle. Everything seems to come, at least in my life, it seems lately especially, everything seems to come at just the right time. And this message came at just the right time in my life. And so I hope it was an encouragement to you as much as it was to me. I mean, sometimes it's not comfortable to be challenged. It's not comfortable to be shown your weaknesses. But you can't grow if you don't confront them. You can't grow if you don't attack them with everything you have. And I was given two very useful tools for my box that I hope you will use too, if you think it'll help. Who's important to you in your life? Make sure you're asking these questions. Make sure you're keeping things right between the two of you, because right relationship's important. Because relationship is what it's all about. That's what it's all about. So encourage someone today by sharing this or tagging someone, because I know everybody needs to hear this. No one is immune to anger. No one is immune to being offended. So share it with everybody. Subscribe, follow. Do it now. I want to be a part of your life, and I want to pray for you. Okay? I love you dearly. I hope you enjoy your Sunday, and I hope it starts your week out just the way you need it to. Take care.